Welcome to Good Thinking.
Hello, and we're back with good signs. I always get
Indeed.
excited for good signs. It's like a lot of work coming up with these, but it's always fun to go back and go through the letters. And I'm always constantly like, oh, yeah, that thing, that thing, that thing. And all day I've been doing that, like compiling these. I'm like, oh, yeah,
hmm
like that's interesting. So it's always a good time to come back to these.
Yeah, and I think it's nice. It punctuates conversations that we're continually having, whether it's LinkedIn posts, conversations you or I having, and kind of things going forward. So I think it's super helpful to just really take a minute and talk about all of the good signs and then really break them down.
Yeah. And I also like because sometimes, like this first one that we're going to talk about was not like a big picture thing that I've been talking about. Sometimes I'm like a little bit more deliberate, like, oh, this is bubbling up, right? And so there's going to be a second one in here that is that. But this first one actually was one that as I was rereading the letters, I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, this is a thing. So the first one I'm calling cult white coats. We're always workshopping these names as
I,
we
I, I
do
love this
this.
one in particular, though. This is
Okay.
really pushing it. I'm into it.
So this first one is really about sort of I've been thinking a lot or seeing a lot that doctors are sort of like the new tastemakers, the new like thing that brands are touting, right? Like so it's not just like so for example, AG1 just signed an NIL name and likeness whatever deals with doctors instead of athletes. So they can use the doctors like sort of persona the same way that like you can use them with athletes. And then there's other brand Lanzerhof, terrible. I mean, I think it's in Austria. But they raised $110 million, which is a pretty good raise, right? Like that's a pretty large
Yep.
raise for doctor-led longevity model, which obviously we've been talking about longevity, but it's really like about they're really specific about saying, hey, this isn't like just woo-woo, like, peptides and massage and all of these things, but it's doctor, like you are going to be meeting with a doctor while you're going through this, right? So you're not going on this like yoga retreat for longevity. You're going to have like medical work done while you're there.
hmm
Canyon Ranch and Hotel Coronado, which is, I think down by your mom, right?
I had my prom there.
Oh,
Hello.
wow. Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
okay. So I think you'd enjoy going down there because they're turning it into like a clinic meets lifestyle, which feels like it's like kind of made for you. So maybe
A
you need
hundred
to
percent.
go back and have like a homecoming. Like, what did they call that? Not homecoming, like a
Reunion.
reunion. Yes. And Dr. Levine, like, who did
Oh, I
Kris
know.
Jenner's house becoming a household name. So anyway, it's like these doctors have become sort of like a brand asset
hmm
all of a
hmm
sudden. And I think that's really like, I don't think doctors were really like a brand asset for like, they weren't celebrity doctors in the way that we have them right now.
Right. No, I think it's for sure something that's hitting. And I think, we just launched or we just created a cosmetics brand, a skincare, a beauty brand that's kind of doctor backed. Like I think it's happening. I think Martha Stewart has something that's coming out or came out. Like I think it is all around. I think it's interesting in thinking about where it kind of comes from. Is it almost this world of which everything became organic or everything peptides are being prescribed, or this is you can kind of go and get all of these parts and pieces on your own. And then I think there's also this movement that we've talked about before as far as really us all wanting to take the healthcare system into our own hands and really kind of make it our own. And it feels like this is a combination of those things.
Well, I actually think that's the kind of the pendulum swing, and the two things live together. And we talk about, right, the fact that the pendulum swing, like, I think you're a perfect example of having this pendulum swing inside of you, right? You want to be like, you're DIYing your peptides over with
Yep.
Jenny. But meanwhile, you know, Peter Attia was like doing something, you'd be like, oh yeah, like that, like that's interesting too, you
hmm
know?
hmm
And I think it's so on the one hand, like in the most recent letter, I called it like I think I called it Uber physicians, right? It's like, people are basically DIYing through AI mostly because not everybody has a Jenny. Like they're going on AI, they're like typing in, like they're tracking everything on their watch, their phone, da 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 da. They're like diagnosing themselves. And then the doctor is just there literally to be like, yes, I can sign your prescription for you. Like, yes, you need these things. Like, it's sort of like on the dotted line. But on the other hand, then there's like the celebrity, like brand asset figure of the doctor. And those two things are living and interesting to the same audience. So it's not
Right.
two different audiences. It's just two things happening at the same time.
100%. And they represent two different things, which is fascinating, kind of within one being to represent two different angles. But I think you're absolutely right, and for sure relevant to me.
Yes. Yes.
And I can't
One day
wait to
we'll
go to
just
the
have to
Hotel
do a
Del.
whole, yeah, we're going to have to do a whole podcast on just who you are. Cause I think I referenced them like, yeah, like you're the consumer. And, you know, maybe people are starting to stitch that together, but maybe we need to connect some dots for people and like, you know,
I'm here
but
for it.
yeah, but I think that's an interesting one that I'm seeing.
Yeah.
The second one, a good signs, I'm calling collab hangover. And this is one that I've talked a little bit more about, right? And you've written about on LinkedIn. And it's the idea that, like, and I've been saying this for ages, that, like, we're all super over the collab, like, terrible collabs. Like, I think we're all fatigued by that.
Yes.
But now it's kind of, like, coming out. Like, I think we've been saying it for a while and people were like, still, you know, like, no, look at Crocs. Crocs, like, built their business. Like, oh, like Crocs. Like, we all need to be like Stanley Cup. But now I think that, like, yeah, that did work for Stanley and it did work for Crocs and it probably isn't going to work for you, you know? And it's starting to, you know, Le Creuset, like, who I do think is actually incredibly well positioned in the world of AI. And I've written about them specifically, but like they have just leaned so hard into like, here's your Minnie Mouse Le Creuset and here's this. And
Right.
what's happening is it's the cheapening of the brand that I struggle with. And I think that people are, you know, like you take all your equity that you've built and you just sort of like dilute it down to the point where you're not being taken seriously anymore.
Right. I think we should give a little background around La Creuset because I think that I posted that on LinkedIn and I think people weren't really aware of it. And I think it's a perfect example because it's such a high-end brand. And I didn't even realize to the degree of how many collaborations they've done and how much they vary.
Yeah. And it's, I mean,
So it's
it's
the
a little
cookware
bit
brand.
like it's the
for
cookware
those,
brand.
For those that don't know.
Yeah. So there's
My
like
one cookware job.
Staub is another one. Like they basically make like, I mean, clearly I'm about to reveal that I am not a big cook, but you
I don't know
know,
if I'd
they
agree with
like
that.
like cast iron, like, you
The
know,
rad, colorful cast iron plates that everybody
yes.
thinks I have hanging on my wall.
Yeah,
But
that
they're
like
actually helmets.
everybody and their mother like basically had one on their wedding like registry.
Yeah.
And I think that they had a lot of clout for like being really like they're still really good. It's a really good product, right? Like it works. It's not cheaply made. It's not like a D2C brand. But they definitely took a moment where they decided like, hey, look at Crocs. And then they were like, let's make a Mickey Mouse. Let's make a Halloween one. Let's make, and it's literally like every 5 minutes they have, I mean, probably less than 5 minutes, like a new kind of limited edition cookware set. And sure, you could argue like they're giving people a reason to buy and they're tapping into fandom, but they're not doing any of that, right? Like they're just not.
Right. It feels like a commodity. And, you know, we're going to do a pod around collabs because I think it's one that we need to do a really deep dive into, like what makes great collabs, why, like what do you have to be a part of, all of those parts and pieces. But I think it's something that is showing up more and more. And I think it's fascinating. It's not to say that they're dead, but I think these examples are so key in taking what a collaboration is about, of really taking two brands together, you know, sharing equity in different ways. And this is really about kind of commoditizing maybe a great brand because it's just like
and I
done
wouldn't
to
even
death.
say, yeah. And in some ways, like, you know, like a little bit like with the Wicked one that I have in there, they're not even necessarily like in some of these cases, they're not really collabs. They're just licensing deals. Like they're just, you know, and it's like, so the Wicked ones, like, it's like, you know, these brands are buying into these licenses. And I think Le Creuset is doing that, right? And you see them and you think to yourself that they're a collab, but they're not really a collab. It's just a licensing deal and they're buying into the license. And let me tell you, it is not working. And I think that that's beginning to bubble up. Like I read in Puck, Lauren Sherman wrote, like, she was talking about J-Press and they have the new creative director, I think his name is Jack Carlson. He came from Rowing Blazers, right? And Rowing Blazers was like basically the updated, preppy, you know, brand of like maybe 10 years ago that was like really kind of became a thing, right? It was like
Hmm.
felt like the updated refresh version. And they did a lot of collabs, like a lot. And they hired JPress, and I will say, like, he's come out of the gate and it's been like collab after collab after collab. He did one with Alex Mill. He did, like, he's done a
Hmm.
lot. And it feels like they took his playbook and they've literally almost trying to make JPress like the same, like rowing blazers like 2.0. But the the difference is that the time has changed, right? And I always think like you have to brand for the time you're in, and like the brand like landscape that we were in when rowing blazers worked and the brand landscape that we're in now are not the same. And so we are all time, like we've all seen this pony show like 20 times now. But when Rowing Blazers was doing it, we hadn't seen that pony show once. So we were like, oh my God, it's so magical. Like, this is so great. It's a very different time now and a very different consumer. And she was like, do we need another brand? Do we need another heritage brand with a twist? And the answer is like, resoundingly no. Right?
Right.
We
Right.
do not.
Yes, I think that's fair. I think it sounds like it's time, it's timing that we've kind of seen these things, but it also feels like they're taking a playbook of like, here's how you do a collaboration or licensing deal. They're taking that and then just checking the boxes of the playbook versus saying like, well, the playbook actually needs to be adapted for today because the landscape is different and here's how it's different. And let's make sure we're adapting that along the way. And I think anytime you take something that's been sitting on the shelves, a strategy deck, a brand book, demographics, a playbook of collabs, it's not going to work. Like you've really got to adapt that. Like it should be a living, breathing document that you are continuing to really dig into what's happening culturally, what's happening socially, what's happening across the board, that we really need to think about this now. And I don't think any of these examples are really doing that.
Yeah, I will say specific to JPress, I think like the landscape is different now is that, like I would tie it back to like everything that's going on with Substack and like people are finding these really heritage brands, smaller brands, like they're really interested in the heritage, not in the new updated heritage, but literally just the heritage and the craftsmanship. And they're finding them through these like quite sophisticated curators. And so they're not coming to like be like refreshed or like, they want it because it's like the real deal, right? And
Right.
that's the difference of the moment is that like the real deal wasn't interesting to people 10 years ago because we just had a bunch of real deal stuff. And the new refresh, updated, blah, blah, blah playbook was like pretty fresh. And now like, that playbook is old. So
Yes. So I think that is Hippopotamus hitting on it, right? It is about really understanding collabs give something. Like it's two brands getting together and they're giving each other something and we'll dig deeper into what that really means. But I think ultimately a collab, when it's done right, is giving something out probably of culture. Right. And what is that actually? What is it giving in culture? And as that continues and will always evolve and change, you've really got to figure out what in that moment is culturally relevant, interesting to that particular audience, the Venn diagram of those two brands and what is that, and really dig into what that is. And I don't think they're hitting it.
yeah, new thing on the podcast, we have a secret word that we're using when we have the right quote that we want to use, and that word is hippopotamus. So welcome to our inside joke. But
And it may change
will,
every time. Maybe it's the Easter egg in here, because I won't be able to,
you're gonna have
we
to
won't remember
find.
hippopotamus next time. It'll be like elephant.
Yes, exactly. I will say, I think, just not to keep going, but like, I think a lot about J. Crew, right? And like J. Crew's had some missteps, but I think what they've done really right is that they kind of collabed with themselves. They collabed with their own history for a while to like keep us to get up. And then they like started having slightly more interesting collaborations that were like a little bit softer because they'd built up the clout, right? And I think that, the strategy going on at JPress is a bit confusing.
A lot to unpack with collabing yourself. I'm really into that. And yes, a lot of deep dive that can happen there. I think Patagonia has done a good job of that. I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. The other one I have to throw out that's not yet on this list, but I put it in the other document is Salt and Straw, which is down the block, which is, beloved ice cream. They did a collaboration with Taco Bell because they have an ice cream taco. And I keep going like, ice cream taco sounds delicious. I get it. But like, what part is from Taco Bell? Because that part doesn't sound delicious.
Right. Unless, like I do think that like the Hudsons of the world who are somewhat the Salt and Straw customer.
Yeah.
But if it's like, if you're not taking his favorite part of because it's not the taco, let me tell you, that he's excited about. It's the like 27 layered taco. So if it was
Yeah.
like it's a taco wrapped in a burrito ice cream, then that would make sense. But if you're gonna do the bit, do the bit. And then the other one in here that I put, it was the Campbell's soup, like Cynthia Rowley like
Yes.
situation, which I have not stopped thinking about for so many reasons. Because when I first saw it, I was like, God no. Like I was just like, it's tragic. Then I read the comment section, and turns out that people love Cynthia Rowley's daughter, Keenan, like absolutely obsessed with her. She's funny, so I will give her that. She is absolutely hysterical. But like I was thinking to myself, like, were they already planning this collab? Like, you know, a collab should not be making me think this much. But like, were they already planning this
Well, this is your
collab
brain.
before Snap? And like, obviously they weren't, because you know that they were, because it takes so long. But then is Campbell's trying to position themselves as like the cheapest like soup brand ever known to man? Because it's like you can give away 99 cans. Like I'm baffled by this. But anyway, I think for the moment it's in, it was not a bad collab, because I think people are very concerned about, you know, people's food safety and need for food. So
Rightfully so.
I respect them for having it. I'm sure that this was planned well before this announcement or before this fiasco. And so I do respect them for like figuring out how to make it the moment,
Yeah.
the right
It's
moment.
a great pivot. It's a great pivot.
Yeah.
In addition to it.
So
Yeah, I mean,
props
the
to them.
videos of those were fascinating to me. I'm like, how many things can you fit in, and then you take it on a picnic and it's a thing? Like, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, who is this? Well, this woman is not. I'm not the customer, but you know, people were very excited about it. So props to them.
Yes, yes. All right,
And then
and the
I
swing?
put in the pendulum swing in here. Was just like, I was like, you know, I do think that there's like brand extensions that go beyond kind of collab. Like, and I was thinking about the Augustine Bader Dua
Mm-hmm.
Dua Lipa, but now called Dua, like the product is called Dua. I thought that was quite smart. Like I liked it. I don't know how you feel about it, but like the Augustina Spader to me has always felt really ancient as a
Mm-hmm.
brand, like
Mm-hmm.
beloved quality.
Yes.
And then like, you know, they've done the drops inside of Victoria Beckham's line. And I
Yeah.
literally like, there's not a day I have had an Substack account where I don't hear somebody recommending that product. So I have it on my list of things I want to try. But I think that they timed this moment well. Like they saw that their product felt old. They found a way to make it feel fresh. It looks fresher. They brought someone in to do it. I would just not have called it Dua. That's the only thing I would have
Right,
fixed.
right. No, I think it's really interesting because I think they are a product that I see and I'm always super curious about, because people really, and I think there's also specifically a dark spot one in there. They just love this product and it fucking works. And the brand does feel like it feels also kind of very specifically dated. You know, it feels of a moment.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that they're trying something to make it more relevant, but hopefully the product still stays. I think it's an interesting play for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who are interested in that medical grade. Again, like going back to the doctor kind of thing. Like there's a lot of interest in medical grade skincare right now, that where for a long time it was like, don't put any chemicals on my skin moment. And now we're like, put all this chemicals on my skin. But I think that like if they'd have done a really hard refresh, I think that wouldn't have felt right for their consumer.
Yeah.
And there's also this younger group of people who are interested in that level of product. So I still say that, like, you know, technically that's not a collab because it's like they started a whole new brand. But I think that there's still possibility for like, you know, doing things. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying be smart about it.
Right. I think that's really the big takeaway here is like collaborations aren't going away, but I think really knowing that like they're fucking everywhere and the appetite for them is maybe not what it once was. And then really digging deep into understanding like, what are you giving people? What is kind of the cultural play that you're actually giving in that collaboration, and make sure it's hitting.
Agreed.
All right.
All right.
Polish is power.
Number 3. Malicious power. So I've written a lot about like the sort of the soft skills are kind of the new, I don't know, you know, obviously I wrote it new hard edge because I can't like help myself, but like the new edge. But, you know, there's so much talk around like finishing, like kind of finishing schools are back. But mostly like not for like, you know, women who are like, you know, housewives, but there's definitely that happening too on like fringes of like the trad wife scene. But the ones I'm talking about are more like finishing schools for like the soft skills of like business or future of career. And it's kind of happening at all the levels. Like it's happening alpha schools, which are like kind of more targeted towards like, middle school, high school age kids. Like, and they're teaching a lot about agency and like, that's really like only skill that we can really teach our kids nowadays that we know will be any use at all, because who knows what they're going to need in the next 10 years. But at least agency is something that we can develop in them, and like that's going to be useful. But that's a soft skill, right? Like advocating
Yeah.
for yourself, finding the things that you need. Like it's not math, it's not
Mm-hmm.
science, And then there's this university called High Point University, which is, the Wall Street Journal, I think, said like, all of like Silicon Valley or all of Wall Street is sending their kids there. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but like, hyperbole is useful in these situations. But they have like literally on campus restaurants. So obviously dining on campus is not a new thing, but like these are like fine dining campus restaurants. You're not allowed to bring your phone, and the staff is specifically chosen to help people like learn the soft skills of like business dealings and like networking and looking right when you're in the right like restaurant, and learning how to order from a wine menu, and how to dress correctly, and how to like what fork to use, and all the things that like they used to teach in finishing school. They're literally teaching those things, and they're not allowed to use their phones at all, which I think is tied to another trend. But I think it's interesting that they see that as like a counter to, like that's unproductive.
Mm-hmm.
And then Slow Ventures, which is this VC firm, has started doing these etiquette boot camps for founders because, and I've talked about this, like I think founders are going to get younger, and they're going to like kind of pop in, make a company in 8 months, and then like, sell it and leave, right? But what they're finding is that these founders, like they've never gone to business school. They might not have even gone to high school, because they're literally like making a business in their mom's basement and then selling it for, a few $1 billion in
As one
11
does.
months. Right. But then they find themselves in this scene of like founders, right? And they don't know how to behave. They don't know the kind of the cultural norms that still matter to people. And it used to be like, oh yeah, in Silicon Valley you can wear like, dirty t-shirt and no one cares. But like the truth is that people do care.
Yeah.
And care more and more. So it's just interesting how like this kind of fluency in like this, etiquette world is coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. I think some of the Slow Ventures visuals were really, I had quite an entertaining time looking at all of those. And I think so much of this particular just feels so like male oriented, of like, these guys really need to kind of have this. But I think to me, this is a much larger, like, I'm here for the soft skills revolution across the board. Sailor had a class last semester that was, I think it was like Life 101. And I think Alison Stodd, I think, posted something, was it last week or the week before, as far as like, here's what here's what colleges or whatever teach you, but here's really the things that we need to know. And I think there are so much of those things that I wish you and I have had conversations about this. Like I wish my kids were being taught, whether it's meditation or, kind of not so much polishing for my kids, though I'm sure they could use that, but kind of more of these soft skills that these are things that you actually need to use out in the world, whether it's speaking, communicating, writing a fucking email, all of those parts and pieces, like soft skills really leading into that, especially as we move into an AI and kind of all automated and all the things that we, constantly hear about. Like, I think those things are the connection, the conversations we just had with people, like it's about connection, and that's so important. And what are the skills and the parts and pieces and the way that we can really teach that so that everybody has the tools to do that properly?
Yeah. And it's not really being taught in a traditional education whatsoever anymore. Like when I was going to like in like middle school in Europe, like, we took like cooking classes and welding classes and all of those things where, they might not have been like really related to soft skills, but let me tell you, the soft skills that you learn in the wood shop are valuable in the workplace. And you don't have those anymore, right? Like it's just so like cut and dry these days, because they have to like teach this crazy curriculums and all of these things. So yeah, I just think it is very male driven at the moment, but I do think it points to a bigger kind of space.
Yes, which I'm 100% here for. Okay. The pendulum swing?
The pendulum swing is, like Meta saying, like, just give us your credit card and a goal and like we'll like do your business for you. Like it's like we don't want any human intelligence or any human involvement whatsoever. And that's a selling point, right? And I think that, I have my feelings on how I think that goes. I think it goes a little bit predictively. I think it goes a little bit in the performance marketing, like will work for a minute but not work for the long term for sure. Like, and again, half the people who are teaching these soft skills are as a building these companies. So
Right.
these are not polar opposites. They're just kind of like all happening at the same time.
Yes. And I think from a human perspective, we're leaning way, way more into that because both of these things sound interesting to me. Like, yes, give me your credit card and do the thing, but also lean into these
Yeah.
soft
I
skills.
mean, and truth be told, like if anyone's ever run any Meta ads ever, going into the back end of Meta was like mostly the bane of marketing people's existence. It was terribly designed interface that like, human beings didn't want to engage with. So if you're going to offer never having to do that again, it's going to be a selling point. It's going to be a
There you
really
go.
big selling point.
All right. Memory metric.
Yeah. I've written about this a bunch over the last couple weeks, but like just thinking a lot about sort of like why brand experience is kind of coming back. And I do think that there's something going on with like the more detached we become, right? Like, even this podcast being one example, like I record these podcasts and I like black out after these podcasts. Like I couldn't tell you what I've said. It's not that I don't mean what I'm saying. It's that like, these kinds of digital interfaces, like whereas a conversation that you and I have in person, I might like have recall for that for years. But these, they're kind of conversations that come and go from my mind. And I think that so much about what's happening in the brand experience space and why we're really enjoying IRL is that like more is got to do with memory making. I think that we are all really looking for brands and experiences that are sticking with us because so much of this like digital world right now feels like extremely ephemeral and extremely like throwaway, right? Like it's not a lasting thing. And so I thought that Moda Operandi, like they had a gifting site and this speaks more to brand experience, but I think that the value's in the memory making. So I'm making that connection, but they're really just selling it for the experience, which is also a trend of like they're offering classes like you can meet with the founders of Kindred Black. And like, in addition to making your own scent with them, they can like, you'll design your own. Kindred Black like makes like every bottle of perfume that they have is like hand blown glass. So you can design your own hand blown glass thing, or you can have a photography, like a photo book, but like it comes with a photo shoot and it comes with the curation of like home memories and things like that. So it's like really, it's not like just a high end gift. It's like a high end memory.
Right. But I'd argue that creating the brand experience is the memory and it's more likely to, and I think that's why, as you mentioned, having conversations in person, like it's more likely to register the memory if there's more of an experience around it. And so then I think that comes into the physical. So yes, it's a gifting site and it's an experience, but then you're more likely to actually remember that. Like if you and I were in person or actually having a conversation over a glass of wine, like sadly, we'd probably remember this conversation more. But it is kind of the experience and where we were and the location. And if it was somewhere beautiful and kind of all of those parts and pieces help to embed the memory in that.
And I think hospitality brands have known this for a long time and have benefited from it. But I just think there's more for more worlds that could be participating in that kind of ethos. And they can do that by getting into hospitality, which is my next example on here is Malbon. So Malbon's the golf brand, but they are, they've just did a big raise. And like when you read like what they raised the money for, which they announced, like it's for going after like hotels and like hospitality in the golf space, right? And that's because like clothing, like for a lot of people, maybe some clothing is memory making, but for a lot of people it's not. And it's something that like they stay with for a bit and then they move on. But like the trip you took with your friends where you had this amazing thing, like is you're going to tie it to Malbon. Like that's an much more powerful brand recall.
Totally.
You're really, really changing things. And it's tough, but I think that's why Louis Vuitton is making like these experiential retail things. It's because those things, like, they stick with you. It's like when I was telling you about Nike, like you used to go to New York and like go to Nike Town, and like I could still tell you about those times that I went to Nike Town
Hmm.
20 years ago, but I couldn't tell you about the like last 10 experiences I had at Nike before that, like since then, because they weren't as
Right.
memorable.
Right. Because the
So,
experience, yeah. You used to
yeah.
purchase the shoes and then they'd throw them up the chute and you'd be like, whoa, that's rad. Have your
I mean,
size,
and
2 minutes.
like it needs again to be updated for today. So it's
Hmm.
not saying like go back and make another Nike Town, but it's like, what is that for today? And so another example I have on here, which does also go into hospitality, is this Korean skincare brand Dam Dam. I think it's Korean or maybe it's Japanese. I'm not sure. But I think it's Japanese actually. They are doing trips through the founder's lens to
Mm.
Japan. And so they're taking people to these to like the places that matter to them, and but it's like it's not a different brand. It's like this is the world, like, we've talked again, this is tapping into another trend of people wanting to do travel experience related to beauty, like people going and getting salmon like sperm injected in Korea
I'm
is a
here.
big reason to go to Korea. But like it's not a different part. It's just a different way of experiencing the brand that maybe is a little bit more based in memory.
Right. It's an extension of the brand. And I think like we know this from the tours that we've done. We could sit on the pod and we have and talk about the experiences and talk about what we see and show pictures and do all of that. But it's much different to take somebody through that experience and allow them to experience it with you and have their own memories and have their own comments and have their own experience with that. That's just something that lasts way longer. So I think it is about, from a brand standpoint, really tapping into not necessarily hospitality unless that's right for your brand, but how can you really extend, like, what is the experience that you can provide that's really about ultimately like a memory making for this. So with Malbon, like, this sounds amazing now that I'm into golf, the
Right.
lodging and kind of
Welcome.
doing that. But it would also be, yeah, thank you. It would also be like, it's yes and, in my opinion, like doing all the experience, but also getting the t-shirt and the hat and all of the parts and pieces. So then every time you put that on, you remember the experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, there was a brand I really liked back in the day called Bite. It was a lipstick brand. They
Hmm.
were kind
Hmm.
of ahead of their time. But like one of the experiences that was like really like fundamental to Bite was that you would go in and you would mix your own lipstick color. And I think you've done something similar recently with
Yeah.
Say, right?
Yeah.
And and you guys have told me about this experience like multiple times,
Yeah.
like, and you've had a lot of beauty and retail experiences, right? But you continue to kind of reference, it's a
Yeah.
little bit like, you always reference the Bombas, like customer service experience, but like,
Can't talk about it enough.
like, right. But like, that's another way of memory making. Like the
Yeah.
Bombas thing is a memory making. It's like somebody took the time
Yeah.
to listen to your problem, and then they made a memory for you, and
Hmm.
that experience was crafted around the concept of memory,
Hmm. Hmm.
in my opinion.
100%.
So I
100%.
think that's something interesting to like be thinking about, is like not like what are the brand experiences we're doing this year, guys? Like it's like, what are the memories
Yeah.
that we are trying to have people have of our brand? Like what would be the most impactful memory that we
Right.
could leave
That's
people
the
with?
shift. That's the
Yeah.
shift, is like thinking about it. And that's the strategy shift of thinking about it from that perspective versus like adding on experiences that may or may not do something. It's like what we were talking about in the collaboration thing. It's really like, what are you giving? What's the memory that you're really giving? And it can be
Yeah.
as simple as the Bombas experience, which clearly I can't
Yeah, and I
shut
think
up
it's
about.
like it's not a new concept, it's just that we need it more now because
Yes.
again, it's the moment because of
Yes.
all the like kind of digital experiences that we're having.
100%. 100%. All right. The swing.
So the swing is just kind of like we're addicted. I put like, so memory making takes time, right? Like, like it's an effort based brand experience, but not everything that we need needs to be like taking time. And there's a lot around like the addiction to immediacy that we have, right? Like we expect everything delivered on like if something is not available next day, it's like,
Yeah.
but
Sad but
this
true.
was so like Gani, I think it was like, adding instant resale. So like, like when you like take your secondhand product in, like you're immediately like getting that money because they've predicted how much they can sell it for. So they're just giving you the money right off the bat, right? They're
Yeah.
not waiting for your product to sell. It's AI shopping, like, in general, like it's just like, you want the answer like right away, the 5 options. And then the last one in here that I put, and I do really think this is a huge shift that we should one day talk about like in a bigger way, is like our mode of operating is really in a big way going to be going from reactive to recommended. Like that is our future. Like the future is recommended to you. It's not reactive. You're not going to like think to yourself, I wish I had, vitamins. Like it's generally going to be like, hey, I've noticed that like your heart rate's like a little bit funky, looks like you're getting sick, and someone's going to be coming to you, and by somebody I mean this thing, and saying, or voice or whatever it is, and saying, hey, you know what, I'm noticing something and I think that you should be buying immunodefense. Here are 5 immunodefense things, and it's going to happen before you've even thought of it. Like that's our new reality.
Yeah.
And so it's not even immediate, it's predictive. So it's like
Yeah.
before you've even thought of it.
Right. Yeah, I think that is scary as fuck, but also I'm 100% here for it.
Yeah. But I think like, again, like those 2 things are going to live like inside of the same human being. Like you love memory making experiences, but like if, it knows that you like Erewhon and it's saying like, hey, I've noticed that Kirsten's like flagging, like maybe we should suggest that she orders salmon for dinner to like boost her immune system, you would probably enjoy that like task being taken off your hands.
Totally.
Or like if you're it's like, hey, I've noticed that your boys are, they're doing there's a lot more soccer games this week. Like we should order more groceries. Like this is like a conversation that my fans are having constantly, is like how much boys eat, like especially when they're in their soccer like phase. But it's like, hey, we're going to order, like you should order more groceries. Like this is some like really good foods to help with like energy after games or whatever. That's all going to be coming to you. We're not there yet, but this is very much our future.
Yeah. All right. And connection.
All right. And then the last one is, and this is very much related to the, there's always like a lot of cross-pollination here, but like related to the memory making thing, is I'm seeing, we've talked about like kind of like closed network and private networks, but what I'm really noticing is that it's also like a craving for intimacy. Like it's a craving for closeness, a craving for connection. And it's not just like the IRL experiences, but it's like about like, really love Offball is I think they're run on Beehive, but like really think of them as a media company, but they're a sports media company. I reference them all the time in the newsletter. But they have this program that they've been doing called The Chat. And so The Chat is like, this time they had basketball, but like they've also have F1, like they've had different chats, but they have essentially like this athletes or the drivers or whoever, I guess drivers are athletes, so that's redundant, but like, that difference doesn't matter, but they're in there, and then you can like be texting with them on WhatsApp, and you can join this like group text with your favorite, like in your favorite connection, like, and you can be joining in, and it is very informal. It's like, it's like suddenly having like the athletes be your besties, right? Like you can just be in this group chat with these people that you really admire. And the other example I have in here is something that Zoe Sackman talked about, which is like Hoyoverse, like measuring like cosplay density or fan like edit velocity instead of just revenue when they're looking at like how well a game does, right? Like they're not looking at like, or IP, they're not like measuring the success of their IP with like, oh, did we sell X many terrible licensing deals, but did we see that fans like took it and recut it and remade it and like made something new with it? Or like, is the like, when we get to the cosplay events, like if we go to Comic-Con, like how many people showed up in our IP versus someone else's IP? Like these are really like indications of like closeness, like, and they're starting to measure their business by the closeness, which is a shift for a lot of companies. Like they don't really measure, it's like dollars and cents and nothing else.
Right. But that's a great long-term play.
Yeah. And then Mischiefs, I think it was like their chief creative officer who has like really made like a entire business model and career off of like wacky, weird collabs, essentially. is saying, hey, actually, I don't think that's going to work in the long term. I think like, and they like in the interview said like, I don't think that, like going for like big viral reactions is actually like a great business model in this time. So again, back to our collab one, but that they really see intimate events, smaller experiences doing the like big lifting for brands in the future. And that's where they're going to be spending their time kind of focus. So,
Yeah, that's great.
somebody who made their business off of collabs is saying, hey guys, the collab thing is over. I think that's pretty big flag for brands that they should be
Yeah, I
paying
think it's
attention
huge,
to.
and props to them for, being able to, like, vocalize that change and put it out there and be like, "Oh, look, things are changing, we're changing our mind, that's great." I think it's so fascinating that all of these, especially obviously the connections one, really come from, and understandably, like, where the space is, a more automated AI, more tech, like, all of the parts and pieces, they're really kind of a reaction to those types of things, and I think connection is getting to, it was community, and now I think it's getting to such a deeper level, and thinking about, as you were mentioning, the off-balls, the chat, like, thinking about WhatsApp has become for me, and, like, the circles that are on there are much more intimate, much tighter, whereas Slack is kind of more of a community in many places, but more kind of ongoing conversations, maybe less intimacy, and it's just interesting to see the variety of tools and the level of community coming down to really connection and personal connection and just getting deeper and deeper
Mm-hmm.
because it's something that we're all craving, clearly.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I could like, we could list off like a gazillion
Yes.
examples of like this, like IRL experiences and all this, but I think it's just more, I think the future is really like measuring how, like finding new ways to measure that and using those as like new metrics for success, I think is a big one for brands to be thinking about and also like starting to plan for it and like figure out how to get people close. And it's not just about proximity. It doesn't just have to be
Mhm.
about IRL events. There's lots of ways that you can kind of measure proximity and like closeness
Yeah,
of fan groups and fans and things like that. And I think that that will be a big thing.
right, right, and I think the connection one is really interesting that it's not just connection, it's really kind of the intimate connection to
Mhm.
however one defines that. Okay, so the pendulum swing on that?
Well, the pendulum swing that I'm like, so it's like, okay, we have connection and then we have disconnection, right? And, so there's, Instagram's coming out with an editable algorithm. Like a few people have it, it's going to be becoming more normal, but you'll be able to kind of like edit what you see in your, like, because you want to be able to disconnect from certain conversations that you don't want to have in your feed, right? Like, it's like, I don't want to be like kind of exposed to this. Like, please give me less of it. But then, like, Priceline in their travel kind of predictions talked about dead zones becoming a thing, like people deliberately choosing places that, like, whether or not it's like just no Wi-Fi signal or like this like hotel bans Wi-Fi, like people really seeking that out.
Mhm.
Phone-free bars, which we've talked about at length.
Yep,
And then the last one is bricking or brick, using a brick, which I will tell you I have been using
and?
for now the last 2 weeks. And I have some feelings about it. Like it's really like it's hard. Like so what I've done for my personal one is I've set it up so that it bricks just Instagram, Slack, LinkedIn, and TikTok from the hours of 7 a.m. to 9 because that's when I wake up and that's when I'm like one of the things that I was finding was I would just like immediately, because I live on a different time zone, right? Like sometimes I was finding like, hey, I wake up and there's a bunch of Slacks. And so I'm like, oh, like, let me just dive right in, right? Like, let's start replying, like shooting off like Slacks left, right, and center, or going on LinkedIn because like somebody's commented on something and I'm like, oh, I should go in and comment, or like, you know, my favorite, like, let me just go like down like Instagram scroll, like, and then it's like 30 minutes later, not only have I not gotten out of bed, but I haven't got my daughter out of bed. And then, like, I was finding, like, I'm not having as much conversation with her. So I love that part of it. Like, that's been very
Yeah.
successful. The thing I don't like about it is that you can't automatically turn it off at the 9 a.m. So you have to literally go and unbrick it.
Mm.
And that is very hard for a mother who has given birth to her memories and ability to have memory like I gave birth to Harriet and like the ability to remember things like went away. And so I would just like walk out. And the problem is not because of Instagram, right? Like I don't need to go out into the world in Instagram, but sometimes I go out into the world and I don't have Slack. And then I'm then I have to come home and like brick my phone, which is, it's not super bad, but like, and they do have like emergency unbricking, like, and you get 5 of
Wow.
them or whatever. But like, there is not a doubt in my mind that I'm going, because I often travel early in the morning, right? Like I leave early in the morning. There is not a doubt in my mind that I'm
I see
going
where
to
this is headed.
forget to turn off the brick automation because I have it set up for Monday through Friday. Gonna get on the train at 6 a.m. on my Instagram, like da da da, and then it's like suddenly it's bricked, and then I'm like without my brick to unbrick myself. So that's gonna
Yeah.
happen. So can't wait for that. But anyway, all to say that's like I just email them and tell them like my feelings
Yeah.
on it. But the concept of it is excellent, and I think it removes the decision making, which I really think is like a big thing for people. Like I just don't have to remember
Yeah.
to have control. Like it just takes that, and then I'm like, oh, okay, great. And then I'm off to doing something else, like reading my book or whatever it is that I
Amazing.
feel like doing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
And some people are very strict about it and they've like, they literally like brick, their Google Chrome and stuff. But like, everybody to their own.
Right. Okay. All right. Noted. Noted. Can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I think you should get one. There. Yeah. This is not a commercial or sponsored by Brick, by the way. But
No.
Brick, if you want to sponsor this podcast,
Yes,
you're welcome.
you can.
Yes.
Would love to hear comments on everything that we shared on kind of the signs that we're seeing, and would love to hear additional signs that you're seeing that we didn't talk about yet.
Yeah. Yes, actually, in 2026, we are going to be opening up sponsorship to this podcast. So if you're a brand that is interested in sponsoring this podcast, give us an email because we're going to fill up the slots early in the new year.
Indeed. And if you like this episode, share it with somebody. Feel free to give it a little bit of algorithm love.
Yes.
And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Ciao, ciao.
Stay curious.